Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. Now Rob told me that the Triumph Scrambler 1200 XE is the best retro scrambler you can currently buy, which is a bold claim, and that's why I borrowed it for just over a week to see if I agree. I will give you my impressions of this thing, both good and bad, and then at the end I'll give you my verdict. Is this the best scrambler on the market? First point is styling, and I would hope you agree this bike is very pretty to look at. For me, it comes down to the fact that it is about as simple looking as a bike gets. That Bonneville design, that Bonneville shape and silhouette is iconic. This obviously a more aggressive, higher stanced version of that, but it still retains that same simplicity and elegance. It's got a really premium finish, but that's something I've come to expect from Triumph. One of the things that's quite nice is how they have actually paired modern with classic in the form of that dash. And it's not going to be to everyone's tastes, but I actually quite like the look of that. You've got two styling options on there, which I've been flipping between. I'm not entirely sure which one I prefer out of them. They both look really nice, but most importantly, everything on that dash is really easy to read at a glance. This is the Gold Line edition, which means they've got that very evocative color choice. Not usually a fan of orange, but I think it actually suits this bike quite well, even considering the fact that it is a classic looking motorcycle. And you've got these hand painted gold details across it. It does boost the price by about £800, but I think it looks really good. Now, if we're talking about Triumph heritage and iconography, they've also got a Steve McQueen edition, which I think looks equally good. The other aspect of styling that speaks to my heart equally strongly is the sound a bike makes, and I've said this in the past, I think that Triumph have one of the nicest stock sounds you are likely to find. Probably none more so than this, in actual fact. It is one of my absolute favourites. It's got a really nice rolling thunder kind of pop and crackle to it, which I will show you now. The engine I'm sure you will already be familiar with, but it is their 1200cc parallel twin, liquid cooled with a 270-degree crank. This one is tuned to about 89 brake horsepower and 110 Newton meters of torque. It is fun to play with, well, technically anything between about 4,500 up to 7,250, which is where it makes peak power, but anything above 2,000 and you are happy on this thing. I don't tend to chase the revs all that much because you really don't need to. Now, do you need an engine that big for going off-road? Absolutely not, and you do have to rein it in to a certain degree. You don't need all that much power to spin out the rear on any bike. Believe you me, you can spin out that tyre if you want to. It has got traction control, so you shouldn't get too unstuck, but it does definitely require a healthy dose of respect. On the road, personally, I find this a hard bike to keep honest because it is all too tempting to just open that throttle wide and see how fast it will shoot off, and it will shoot off very, very fast. It's great in a city, it's great in the country, but like I say, it is a very cheeky thrill because you do find yourself constantly chasing that acceleration, which of course it has.
Now, before Tim gets onto the next one, I just want to say a massive thanks to Cardo for sponsoring this video. When we're out riding together, we've been using their awesome new comm system, the PackTalk Edge. Riding with a headset like this not only makes it easier to coordinate on directions and when we're stopping to film stuff, but it also just makes the whole experience a lot more fun. The PackTalk Edge is rammed with awesome features like their latest Gen 2 dynamic mesh connectivity. With this system, you can pair up to 15 riders with a range of up to a mile between each, so it's perfect for large groups. And it also features auto healing, so if a rider drops off, you don't need to pair again manually. They'll just seamlessly be added back to the group when they catch up. I've also been super impressed with the audio quality, with speakers developed by JBL for really clear and punchy sound. And also, the thing that used to annoy me the most about my old headset from another brand was the wind noise all the time at motorway speeds. But Cardo have absolutely nailed the noise gating on this one, so it's nice and quiet with zero distractions from the road ahead when nobody's talking. All in all, this is easily the best headset I've tried so far, and I can wholeheartedly recommend it. There's a link down in the description where you can find out more, as well as a 10% discount code for my viewers. So once again, a massive thanks to Cardo for sponsoring this video, and with that, I'll hand you back over to Tim.
Now when it comes to the rest of the equipment, you are not found wanting for tricked out components, things like the shower suspension on the front, fully adjustable, Öhlins suspension on the rear, also fully adjustable, with longer travel suspension, obviously useful if you're taking it off-road, and they do a really good job of soaking up all of those bumps and inconsistencies that you'll find, all of that nasty stuff. It also gives it a slightly higher stance, which obviously is good for ground clearance, also important off-road. Now when you do take it on-road, it's actually really good at being stable and composed. It doesn't feel soft or vague at all. It still feels nice and precise in a corner. Equally, it has strong brakes. You've got those Brembo M50 calipers on the front, radially mounted, 4-piston, grabbing 320mm discs, and on the rear you've got a 255mm disc and a Brembo 2-pot. It has got ABS, and that ABS is of course switchable. If you're taking it off-road, you can turn it off on the rear. Tech-wise, we've got plenty on hand as well, and I love the fact that as simple as it looks, it has all of these clever little tricks hidden and nestled within, accessed through the TFT dash, which, as I said before, I don't think is going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I really like the look of it. There's two different styles that I've been playing between. I actually think I prefer style 2, but both of them are just as easy to read and understand at a glance. The switch gear and the controls are very easy to use. You have 6 different rider modes. Essentially, you've got rain, road, sport, all of them distinctly different. Sport is a lot of fun to play with for commuting or city riding, for better fuel consumption. Maybe go for rain or road, but definitely don't cheat yourself out of trying sport. Then you've got off-road, and you've got some customizable settings as well. It's got self-cancelling indicators. You have the option of connecting your phone to that dash and controlling your phone through the bike. You have cruise control, which obviously is quite useful for longer trips, works really well. And then you've got keyless ignition, which is the one thing I would say possibly feels out of place on this bike. It is a fun gimmick, and I can't say I haven't enjoyed using it, but it just feels a bit strange when you have a manual locking steering lock and filler cap, because you still need to use the key and you still need to have it on you. It just means that it is a bigger key at the end of the day. One of the little touches about that key that I actually do like is that when it's in place, it's actually locked there until you turn it fully to the right and retrieve it, meaning that you can ride with it in situ and it's not going to go flying down the road. And I say I like that. I like it now. I didn't like it when I first received the bike, put the key in and couldn't get it out, and had a bit of a sword in the stone moment until someone came along who was worthy and then showed me how to actually do it. Weight and proportions in a nutshell, this bike is very tall and very heavy, and it makes it all the more impressive when you see someone muscle this thing around. You have a very stable and predictable front end. You have a rake of 26.9 degrees and a trail of 129.2 millimeters. It has a seat height of 870 millimeters, which really is quite tall. But then again, it is a Scrambler. It's meant to go off-road. That is to be expected to some degree. But it is quite wide at that seat as well, which does push your legs out slightly. If you're around my height, I'm 5'10", you will be able to get both feet down on your toes, certainly not flat-footing it. And again, that's not much of an issue on the road. It's only a problem if you are going to go off-road and maybe you misstep and put your foot down, then you will start to feel the weight. Speaking of weight, it is 230 kilograms. Again, on the road, obviously you're not going to feel that, but slow maneuvers, parking this thing or riding off-road, you will occasionally be reminded of its mass. The other difficulty there is that it holds that weight quite high. If you're not expecting it, it may take you by surprise. The increased height and legroom obviously make this thing a very comfortable bike to sit on. It is very ergonomically designed, either for standing up or sitting down. Everything is in the right place. If you are going off-road and you're standing up, the bars don't drag you forward. You can stand comfortably upright on it. It's also got a very comfortable saddle. This is a bike that you can do distance on easily. Obviously, it doesn't have any fairing on the front there of which to speak, apart from perhaps the handguards taking a bit of that wind off your hands, but the rest of it is clearly very exposed. Sometimes though, and for some people, they won't necessarily mind that. It is at least clean air that you're getting, since there is nothing on the front there to disturb it. It's not too turbulent at all. So what's the verdict? Overall, I would say it's easily up there with the best of them. And in its class, I would compare it to things like the Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled, for example. I think they're decent playmates. The big difference is that this is a little bit more tech-focused. Essentially, it's an adventure bike without the luggage, fairing, or fuel range. Think Triumph Tiger and Triumph Bonneville had a baby, and it took after the Bonneville in the looks and power department, and it got the Tiger's long travel suspension, brakes, and brain. If you're planning on taking it off-road, then great. Just make sure you've got the confidence and experience to back that up. A 230 kilogram, 1200cc, 13,000 pound bike wouldn't be my first choice to learn on, but I'm sure you've seen the same materials that I have, proving this thing has the capabilities of going off-road in experienced hands. That said, if you've got no intention of going off-road, then try and also make an XC version of this bike, which biases towards road riding. And if you're not sure which one to buy out of the two of them, we already have a video explaining the differences and details between them, which you can watch right now by clicking the link. See you soon.